Emily sat by the wide kitchen window, her fingers wrapped loosely around a mug of coffee that had already gone cold. The morning light spilled across the table, illuminating the family photographs arranged with care on the wall. Each frame told the same story: a smiling couple, vacations by the coast, holiday dinners where Emily leaned into her husband, Daniel, as though nothing in the world could divide them. To the outside eye, theirs was a marriage made of glass, clear, seamless, unbreakable. Neighbors praised Daniel's steady devotion, his polite smile, his punctual arrivals from work. Emily herself used to believe it. She repeated the thought like a prayer: "We are happy, we are solid, we are fine." And yet, there were cracks. Daniel had grown quieter over the past months, speaking less during their dinners, his phone forever close to his hand. When she asked if something was wrong, he kissed her forehead and brushed the question aside with a tender, "Just tired, Em." His tenderness still disarmed her, made her feel foolish for doubting him. But when his lips met her skin, she sometimes felt nothing beneath it. No warmth, no pulse of affection, only habit. She reminded herself that all marriages changed over time. 15 years could not burn as hot as the first two. People matured, love mellowed, comfort replaced passion. That was normal, everyone said so, and Emily wanted to believe it. Still, silence clung to the house at night, stretching heavy between them in their bed. Daniel often turned to face the wall, muttering something about deadlines or early meetings. Emily would lie awake, watching, the faint glow of his phone light up his side of the room, illuminating his sharp profile in the dark. She told herself not to wonder, not to ask again. Trust. That is what love is built on. On weekends, when friends came over, Emily wore her practiced smile. She played the gracious hostess, serving wine, laughing in all the right places. Daniel's hand occasionally brushed her shoulder in a gesture that appeared affectionate, but his eyes seemed far away, as though some part of him lived outside the home they had built. Emily brushed it off. After all, people envied her life. She had Daniel, security, a lovely home. That was the dream, wasn't it? And yet, as she gathered the coffee mug and carried it to the sink, an odd chill touched her spine. She ignored it, washing the cup slowly, her hands trembling for reasons she refused to name. Outside, the faint vibration of a phone echoed from the living room. Daniel's phone. Emily froze. The nightmare was only just beginning. Emily's heart skipped as the faint vibration echoed again, muffled against the cushions of the living room sofa. Daniel's phone lit up, a tiny rectangle of light in the otherwise quiet house. She told herself not to move, not to intrude. Trust Emily. Don't become the suspicious wife. But her feet carried her into the room before she realized it. The phone screen blinked once, twice, and then went dark, leaving only silence. She hovered, staring at the device as though it held a living, breathing secret. The lock screen glared back at her, 6 digits that only Daniel knew. It hadn't always been locked. A sharp pang twisted in her chest. When had that changed? The sound of footsteps startled her. Daniel emerged from the hallway, hair damp from a shower, his shirt half-buttoned. He spotted her instantly, standing too close to. His phone. "What are you doing?" His voice carried a softness, but beneath it ran a thin current of accusation. Emily stepped back quickly. "Nothing. I was just..." She gestured vaguely toward the bookshelf. "Looking for the car keys." Daniel's eyes lingered on her longer, the necessary suspicion flickering. Then he smiled, that practiced, careful smile. "You worry too much." He slipped the phone into his pocket and kissed her temple, as though sealing her lips shut. The unease did not vanish. It thickened. In the days that followed, the pattern grew clearer. Daniel left the dinner table mid-conversation, phone buzzing. In his hand, returning minutes later with excuses about work. He laughed at messages he never shared, typed furiously in the dead of night, always shielding the screen from view. Emily tried to convince herself that her husband was simply stressed. maybe even planning a surprise. But late one evening, while folding laundry, she heard him in the study, voice low, tone softer than she had heard in years. The tenderness in his whisper froze her blood. He wasn't speaking to her. When she entered, he ended the call abruptly, smiling as though nothing had happened. "Just work," he explained, though his eyes refused to meet hers. It was in those moments, the evasive looks, the too quick explanations, that Emily's unease grew roots. Doubt burrowed deep, choking the trust she clung to. And then, one night, a name flashed briefly on the screen before Daniel swiped it away. Emily saw it, just one word, etched like a blade in her memory. Claire. The shadow had a name now, and Emily's perfect marriage had never felt further from the truth. The name pulsed in Emily's mind long after the screen went dark. Claire. A stranger etched between her and Daniel, an unseen figure threading shadows through their marriage. At first, Emily tried to dismiss it. Claire could be anyone, a colleague, a client, a harmless friend. But denial withered quickly. Late at night, when Daniel slipped away with his phone, she caught glimpses of messages reflected faintly in his glasses. Words like "miss you," "can't wait," and "last night." Not the language of work, not the language of friendship. Her chest tightened with each fragment. The betrayal was no longer a suspicion. It was alive, breathing in every vibration of that phone. One afternoon, while Daniel showered, Emily found herself in their bedroom, staring at the device left unguarded on the nightstand. Her hands shook as she picked it up, pressing the screen. The lock mocked her, a barrier she could not cross. She tried twice, birthdays, anniversaries, but failed. By the third attempt, she dropped it back in place, terrified he might walk. Still, she wasn't blind. She noticed how Daniel's expression softened at every ping, how his lips curved into secret smiles that had once belonged only to her. When he turned away, his shoulders seemed lighter, freer, as though her absence gave him breath. Emily began piecing Claire together from the scraps. A laugh Daniel carried back from his calls, the cologne she didn't recognize clinging faintly to his shirt, the sudden excuses to work late. Claire became a ghost in their home, present in silence, invisible, yet undeniable. One night she heard his hushed laughter through the bathroom door. Her pulse pounded as she pressed closer. "I'll see you soon," Daniel whispered. Her stomach dropped. There it was, the confirmation she dreaded. He wasn't simply distracted. He wasn't overworked. He was gone, piece by piece, to someone. Elsewhere, Emily stared at her reflection in the hallway mirror, searching for the woman she used to be, the wife who believed in forever. But all she saw was a hollow shell, eyes rimmed red, lips pressed into a thin line. The other woman had taken root in her life, unseen but consuming. And when Emily confronted Daniel, he would make her believe she was the one who had lost her mind. Emily couldn't hold the silence any longer. The name, Claire, scratched against her thoughts like broken glass. One evening, as Daniel sat across from her at the dinner table scrolling on his phone, she finally spoke. "Who's Claire?" Her voice trembled despite her effort to steady it. Daniel froze, only for a fraction of a second, before looking up with practiced ease. "What are you talking about?" "I saw her name," Emily pressed. "On your phone. You've been laughing, whispering, sneaking away. Don't lie to me, Daniel. Who is she?" He leaned back in his chair, lips curling into a half-smile that made her stomach turn. "Emily, do you hear yourself? You're paranoid. Imagining things again. Again." The word cut deep. Her throat tightened. "Don't do that. Don't twist this on me. I know what I saw. You think because you glimpse a name, suddenly I'm guilty of something?" His tone sharpened, though his face remained eerily calm. "You've been fragile lately, always doubting, always searching for something that isn't there. Maybe you should talk to someone about it. Gaslight." The word slammed into her, though. She didn't say it aloud. He was making her question herself, bending her fear into weakness. "I'm not fragile," she whispered, but the conviction bled from her words. Daniel reached across the table, placing his hand over hers. His touch felt heavy, possessive, not tender. "I love you, Emily. Don't ruin what we have with wild accusations. Do you really want to drive a wedge between us over nothing?" Tears blurred her vision. She hated herself for wavering, for wanting to believe him. But his calmness unsettled her more than anger would have. It was as though he had rehearsed this, perfected the art of denying until doubt consumed her. The rest of the meal passed in silence, broken only by the clink of silverware. Emily ate without tasting, her mind spiraling. Was she wrong? Was she truly inventing shadows? Or had Daniel simply mastered the cruelty of making her feel insane for seeing the truth? Later that night, she lay awake, listening to the faint glow of his phone across the room. He turned away from her, shoulders shaking with quiet laughter, his fingers moving fast over the screen. Emily's chest ached. His words had silenced her for now, but the seed of betrayal had already grown too deep. And soon, she would need proof. Emily waited until Daniel left for another late meeting. Her chest thudded with dread as she pulled on her coat, slipping quietly into the car. She told herself she wasn't the kind of wife who spied, but his lies had forced her into shadows. Proof. She needed proof. Something undeniable, something he couldn't twist into paranoia. She followed at a careful distance, headlights dim, breath shallow. Daniel's car wound through city streets before pulling into a quiet side road near a small restaurant tucked away behind glowing windows. Emily parked far enough to remain unseen, her fingers gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles ached. Through the windshield, she saw him step out, straightening his jacket, brushing invisible dust from his sleeves. Then she saw her, the woman who had lived in whispers and text messages. Claire, younger, radiant in a simple dress, her smile soft yet intoxicating. Emily's heart fractured. The two embraced with the casual ease of lovers long accustomed to secrecy. Daniel's hand lingered at Claire's waist, his face lit with a warmth Emily hadn't seen in years. They laughed together, moving closer as though pulled by an invisible thread. And then, without hesitation, Daniel lowered his head and kissed her. The sight seared into Emily's mind. There was no mistaking it now, not work, not friendship, not harmless distraction. Betrayal stood bare before her, undeniable, cruel in its simplicity. Emily's breath fogged against the glass as tears threatened to blur her vision. She wanted to burst from the car, scream, claw the lie from his lips. But she sat frozen, trembling, in the stillness consumed by a rage she had never known. When Daniel and Claire disappeared inside the restaurant, Emily slumped against the seat, her chest heaving. The man she had built her life around, the man she had defended against her own doubts, had given his love away so easily. The kiss replayed in her mind, over and over, each repetition burning deeper. Her marriage was no longer a fragile suspicion. It was broken, bleeding, and as she drove home, her tears dried into something colder. Proof had been found. But with it came the first whisper of vengeance. The night after witnessing the kiss, Emily wandered the house like a ghost. Sleep had abandoned her. Every room echoed with betrayal. Daniel snored lightly upstairs, peaceful, in his lies. While she drifted through hallways that suddenly felt foreign, her eyes lingered on the attic door. For years, Daniel had insisted that space was his domain. Boxes of old files, work junk, too tedious to sort. Emily rarely questioned it, though occasionally she noticed him slipping up there with a carefulness that seemed unnecessary. Tonight, curiosity burned hotter than fear. She pulled the cord and climbed the creaking ladder into darkness. Dust filled the air, catching in her throat, but beneath the smell of cardboard and old wood was something newer. Floral, faint, and utterly wrong. With trembling hands, she opened the nearest box. Inside lay a stack of letters tied with a red ribbon. Her breath caught as she unfolded one. "My darling Daniel, last night felt like a dream. You make me feel alive again." Emily's vision blurred. Letter after letter bore Claire's name, her handwriting delicate, looping, intimate. They spoke of stolen weekends, promises of forever, whispered secrets Daniel had once shared only with Emily. Shoving the letters aside, She opened another box. Jewelry boxes, small, elegant, untouched. A silver bracelet still wrapped in tissue paper. A perfume bottle nearly full. Tokens of devotion never given to her. Her chest heaved with jagged sobs, but no sound escaped. Rage clamped tight around her throat, transforming grief into something sharper, colder. Each gift was a blade carving away the remnants of trust. Kneeling in the dust, Emily pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. She thought of the years she had given Daniel, her youth, her loyalty, her faith, and here, hidden above their marital bed, lay the proof of his double life, tucked away like treasures too sacred for daylight. The attic spun around her. She stuffed the letters back, slamming the lids shut, desperate to erase the sight, though it was etched forever in her mind. As she descended, the ladder groaned under her weight. Her body shook, not with weakness, but with something new, something dark. Downstairs, she stared at Daniel's shoes by the door, polished, neat, innocent in their placement. How many times had those same shoes carried him to Claire? Emily wiped, her face dry. The tears were gone. What remained was fire. The marriage wasn't just broken, it was a stage, and she would wear her mask until the curtain fell. By morning, Emily had perfected her performance. She greeted Daniel with a smile, kissed his cheek and asked about his schedule as though the attic's secrets didn't exist. Her mask fit neatly, convincing even to herself for fleeting moments. Daniel seemed almost relieved by her silence. If he sensed the shift in her, he hid it well. In fact, he grew bolder. He left his phone carelessly on the counter now, though, always locked. He lingered longer in the shower, humming under his breath. He even bought fresh shirts without mentioning it, shirts Emily knew were meant to be worn for someone else. At dinner parties with friends, Emily's mask gleamed brightest. She laughed too loudly, filled every silence with chatter, poured more wine than usual. Friends exchanged subtle glances, whispering later that Emily seemed different, perhaps tired, perhaps unwell. Only she knew the truth. Her exhaustion was not from sleepless nights, but from holding her fury beneath the surface. One evening, as neighbors gathered in their backyard, Emily caught Daniel's gaze across the table. He smiled, charming, perfectly at ease. And yet behind that smile, she saw the arrogance of a man who believed he was untouchable. Rage curled in her gut, but her lips stretched into a grin as she refilled his glass. Inside their home, silence thickened. Emily stopped pressing questions. Daniel, mistaking her quiet for surrender, became careless. He took late-night calls in the kitchen, whispering but not low enough. He texted at stoplights, smirking as though savoring forbidden sweetness. Each slip carved deeper wounds into Emily's heart, but she didn't flinch. She stored them away, weaponizing every detail. At night, lying beside him, she stared at the ceiling and imagined the confrontation. The words, the screams, the final shattering of their carefully constructed life. But she wasn't ready, not yet. Masks required patience. Still, cracks were beginning to show. One friend pulled her aside after a dinner, asking softly if everything was all right. Emily forced a laugh, insisting she was fine, but her eyes betrayed her. They carried the storm, waiting to break. The performance could not last forever. Militsi knew it. Daniel's arrogance fed her rage, and her rage was approaching its edge, and soon the mask would shatter. It was nearly midnight when Emily heard the front door creak. She had been sitting in the dark, waiting, her heart a steady drum of fury. Daniel moved quietly, careful not to wake her, his polished shoes slipping on as though he were a thief in his own home. "Where are you going?" Her voice cut through, the silence like a blade. Daniel stiffened, hand frozen on the doorknob. Slowly, he turned, forcing a smile that never reached his eyes. "Work. They need me. Urgent call. Work doesn't make you put on cologne at midnight." Emily rose from the chair, her fists trembling at her sides. "Stop lying to me. I know." His expression flickered, but he quickly recovered. "No." "What?" "Claire," she spat. The name tasted like poison. For a moment, Daniel's mask cracked and silence thickened between them. Then he chuckled softly, shaking his head. Emily, you're doing this again. Creating stories. It's pathetic. Her chest burned. I followed you. I saw you, the restaurant, the kiss. Don't you dare call me pathetic. Daniel's jaw tightened. You shouldn't have been spying. This is exactly what I mean. You're obsessed, unstable. Maybe if you weren't so controlling. Controlling. Her voice rose, breaking with fury. I gave you everything. My years, my trust, my love. And you repay me with lies. With her? He stepped closer, towering over her, his tone low and sharp. Careful, Emily. Don't twist this into something it's not. The rage that had simmered for weeks erupted. She shoved him hard against the door, her hands shaking. Don't gaslight me again, Daniel. Don't you dare. His eyes narrowed. He grabbed her wrists, pushing her back, his grip bruising. You've lost it, he hissed. This is why I had to. He stopped. But the unfinished sentence sliced her open. Had to what? Had to find someone else? Had to escape me? Emily wrenched free, her voice breaking into a scream. Say it! Admit it! Daniel's calm cracked. Fine, yes, Claire is mine. She's everything you're not. Alive, passionate. Worth my time, and I won't give her up for your madness. The words landed like daggers. For a moment, Emily couldn't breathe. She stared at him, chest heaving, and felt something inside her splinter. You destroyed us, she whispered, though her voice was nearly lost beneath the roaring in her ears. Daniel sneered. No, Emily, you destroyed yourself. The air between them vibrated with violence, each second pulling them closer to the edge. Neither moved at first, locked in a standoff of broken vows and burning rage. Then Daniel reached for the door again, dismissing her as if she were nothing more than an obstacle, and Emily snapped. Emily's body moved before her mind could catch up. The vase on the entryway table was suddenly in her hands, its cool weight pressing into her palms like destiny itself. Don't you dare walk away from me, she screamed. Daniel turned, exasperated, his hand still on the doorknob. Enough, Emily. You've completely lost it. The words ignited something feral inside her. With a cry torn from the deepest well of her rage, she swung. The crash was deafening. Ceramic shattered against his temple, and Daniel staggered back, eyes wide with shock. For a frozen moment, the world stood still. His body teetered, then collapsed, against the polished hardwood with a sickening thud. Silence followed, a silence so thick it roared in her ears. Emily dropped the broken vase, shards scattering at her feet. She stumbled back, pressing both hands over her mouth, unable to breathe. Daniel lay sprawled on the floor, his shirt already darkening as blood trickled from the side of his head. Daniel. Her voice broke, high-pitched and foreign to her own ears. She knelt beside him, shaking his shoulder. His eyelids fluttered, his lips parting as though he wanted to speak, but no words came, only a faint gurgle, wet and terrible. Her chest tightened with panic. She pressed her hands against the wound, blood seeping warm and sticky through her fingers. Stay with me, please. I didn't mean. The lie tasted bitter even as it left her lips. She had meant it. In that moment, she had wanted to hurt him, to make him feel the weight of her betrayal. But she hadn't wanted this. Daniel's breaths grew shallower. His eyes, once sharp with arrogance, dulled with every passing second. He reached weakly toward her, fingers brushing her wrist. Before falling limp, tears blurred Emily's vision. She rocked back on her heels, trembling, staring at the red spreading across the floor. The house felt colder, heavier, as though the walls themselves recoiled from what had just occurred. She pressed her bloody hands to her face, her breaths coming in ragged sobs. Her mind raced. Call an ambulance, call the police, lie, confess. Every thought collided, none sticking. Then a horrible clarity settled over her. There was no undoing this. No way back to the perfect marriage she had clung to. Daniel wasn't just unfaithful now. He was broken, dying because of her. The weight of it crushed her chest, but beneath the panic was something darker, a flicker of grim satisfaction. He couldn't leave her for Claire now. Emily sat in the growing pool of blood, paralyzed by horror, listening to the shallow rattles of his final breaths. And when the house fell completely silent, she realized she had crossed the line from suspicion and betrayal into something far worse. Murder. The sirens shattered the night an hour. Later, their red and blue lights painting the walls in frantic flashes. Emily sat stiffly on the sofa, her hands scrubbed raw, though the smell of iron still clung to her skin. Daniel's body had already been taken away, zipped into a bag she couldn't look at for long. 2 detectives entered, the weight of authority heavy in their footsteps. Detective Harris, tall and severe, took notes with mechanical precision. Detective Monroe, younger, softer in tone, studied Emily as though she were a puzzle. "Mrs. Walker," Harris began, his pen poised. "Tell us what happened tonight." Emily swallowed hard, forcing her voice steady. "It was self-defense. He attacked me. We argued, and he got violent. I panicked. I grabbed the vase." Monroe tilted his head. "Did your husband often get violent?" Her lips trembled. "Not usually, but he was angry tonight. Something snapped in him." The lie felt clumsy on her tongue, but she pushed it forward, desperate to build her story. If she could paint Daniel as the aggressor, maybe she could survive this. The detectives exchanged a glance, one she couldn't read. Harris scribbled, then asked, "Did anyone else witness the argument?" "No," Emily said quickly. "It was just us." The room grew heavier. An officer approached, placing Daniel's phone on the table. "We pulled this from the scene," he said. "Might help." Emily's chest tightened. She had forgotten about the phone. Harris tapped the screen, scrolling. Through messages, his brow furrowed. "Claire," he murmured, showing Monroe the thread. Dozens of messages, romantic, explicit, damning, filled the screen. Harris turned his gaze back to Emily. "Who is Claire?" Emily's throat went dry. I don't know," she stammered, though the words rang hollow. "Strange," Monroe said softly. "Your husband seemed to know her very well." The silence pressed against Emily like a vice. Her story was unraveling, thread by thread, under their steady stares. She tried to compose herself, tried to summon the mask she had worn for weeks. "Whatever he was hiding, it doesn't change what happened. He came at me. I defended myself." But her voice cracked, betraying her. Monroe leaned forward, his eyes sympathetic yet unyielding. "Mrs. Walker, grief makes liars of us all, but the truth has a way of surfacing." Emily sat frozen, every muscle taut, knowing the ground beneath her was collapsing. And deep inside she felt it. The nightmare was only beginning. The courthouse smelled faintly of dust and old wood, the kind of scent that clung to history and judgment. Emily sat stiffly at the defense table, wrists shackled loosely in front of her, every eye in the room fixed on the woman who had once been a devoted wife. The trial had dragged for weeks. The prosecution painted her as jealous, vindictive, a woman who struck her husband not out of fear, but rage. They read Claire's messages aloud, twisting each tender line into motive. Every whispered "I miss you" became a nail in Emily's coffin. Her lawyer fought back, insisting it was self-defense, that Daniel had been emotionally manipulative, possibly violent. He argued that no one could truly know what happened in that final moment except Emily. But the jury's faces remained impassive, caught between sympathy and suspicion. At night, alone in her cell, Emily replayed everything. The kiss, the attic, the vase shattering, Daniel's blood spreading across the floor, his final breath. The memory clung to her skin like a second layer she could never wash away. She would wake in the dark, trembling, unsure if she had dreamed it all or if this truly was her life now. The courtroom buzzed as Claire was called to testify. Her presence was devastating. She sat poised, her eyes glassy with rehearsed sorrow. "He loved me," Claire admitted softly. "He wanted to leave, but he didn't know how." Emily's stomach twisted, but she kept her face expressionless. Rage threatened to rise, but shackles and stares kept it locked inside. Detective Monroe's words from the night of the murder echoed in her mind. The truth has a way of surfacing. And now it had. Her marriage, her husband, her sanity, all laid bare for strangers to dissect. The verdict came after hours of deliberation. Emily stood, knees shaking as the foreman rose. "We, the jury, find the defendant." The words blurred. In her ears, guilty or not guilty, it almost didn't matter anymore. Because whether she walked free or spent the rest of her life behind bars, the nightmare would never leave her. Daniel's betrayal lived in her blood. Her crime lived in her hands. As the gavel struck, Emily closed her eyes. She saw Daniel's face not as the unfaithful husband, but as the man she had once loved. The man who had laughed with her under summer skies, who had whispered promises in the dark. That man was gone long before the vase fell. When the guards led her away, the courtroom lights flickered harshly against her pale skin. Somewhere deep inside, a part of her almost wished for punishment. Another part wished it could all be erased, that she might wake in her bed to find Daniel beside her, alive, unbroken, faithful. But there was no waking from this. This was her life now, her husband's secret, her crime, her nightmare.